Good evening, folks, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Bina. Great to see you once again, Bina. We have FSM is the dog. FSM certainly is the dog. We have Stephanie King. Great to see you, Stephanie. We have Enzo the God. Great to see you. We also have Colin. Great to have you on. Inaki. Great to see you. Mr. Rolling, 1964. Great to have you on too. Chatty Rat. Great to see you too. Gerard is on. We also have Killer. Thanks for moderating. We have Raven 1983 Witch. Great to see you. Alistair. Great to have you on once again. We also have, let me see, Roisin. Great to have you on. Oraman is back. Great to see you too. We have Young Ralph. Great to see you, Young Ralph. Freckle Bunny. Great to have you on. Ola. We have also, let me see, Vicky, great to see you, Vicky. The Lefty Boater, the Lefty Boater, great to see you. Joe K, great to have you on as well. Jasper is there too. Stu, great to have you on. Lady Fart, great to see you too. Hope you're well. You need to get that thing sorted out. CGM is on. Good to have you on moderating, CGM. We have Chris, great to see you. Ruman, great to have you on too. Ministerian, great to see you too as well. Number 3 is on. Great to have you on again. And so many more. Magic is there. Conservator. Mark. Tiny Demolition Lover, great to see you too. And so many more. Asperger's Europe, great to see you too as well once again. So I can't say hello to everyone, unfortunately, because I'll be here all night as always. Hope everyone had a great week and you're ready for the weekend. We had a great showing on Tuesday night. Great numbers for Tuesday night, and I hope it was interesting. I want to start off with this interesting video where this guy called Ed Campbell visited a town in England, Boston in Lincolnshire, which had the highest percentage of leave voters in the UK, and he asked them if they regret their decision. So we'll jump into that in just a moment. Remember, if you want me to read out your comment, I can do that if you send me a super chat. And remember, you can support the channel by becoming a patron or just by sharing videos on social media. That's a great way to help as well. Not a great week, Max, but thanks. Yes, so Alistair, of course, is from Scotland, and we've seen the result this week from the Supreme Court, UK Supreme Court, saying that the Scottish Parliament can't hold a referendum. They need permission from Westminster, which sort of reinforces the point that many people have been trying to make, is that it's not a voluntary union because you can't leave. You know, we had Suella Braverman explaining how people can't come into Britain, and we've seen the Supreme Court explaining how Scotland can't leave the union. So if you can't get in, you can't get out. It's not even Hotel California. Anyway, let's jump into this video here from Joe. Let's see what they have to say for themselves.
Coked up posh boys that think they can run the entire planet, and it's just like, what?
Did you vote to leave?
Yes.
Are you happy with how Brexit has gone?
No.
If you want to come and work in our country and we need you, come. If you don't, if you're here for a payment holiday and benefits, then don't come.
Boston had the highest proportion of leave voters in the UK.
Okay.
Does that surprise you?
Not really, no, to be honest.
Would you want to go back into the EU?
Absolutely, yeah. I didn't really want to come out. I'm very much a Europhile anyway. It was only my ex-wife. And the idea that Turkey would come into the EU and then we'd be loused out with thousands of Turks. I've got no problem with Turkish people. I love Turkish people. But to have all of my wife's family coming over, oh no.
I voted.
Wait a minute. He voted to leave? I don't understand, because he's not very clear. He said that he voted to remain. So he said, do you want to go back in? He says, yeah, but and he's Europhile, but only because it was only my ex-wife that made him vote leave. That's probably the worst excuse ever.
And the idea that Turkey would come into the EU and then we'd be loused out with thousands of Turks. I've got no problem with Turkish people. I love Turkish people. But to have all of my wife's family coming over, oh no.
Okay, I hope his wife and her family are not watching this.
I voted to leave Europe and I recognise the direction it was going in, and it's authoritarian.
So my other half.
Okay. Well, first of all, you didn't vote to leave Europe, you voted to leave the EU. Now, Brexiteers will try to say, no, we love Europe, we just hate the EU. So, but this guy voted to leave Europe, okay. And the argument he gives here, like, does he not understand, for example, that Britain has a king, that there is a House of Lords, an unelected House of Lords? He's one of these, we voted to take back our democracy. Okay, let's continue.
And I recognise the direction it was going in, and it's authoritarian.
So my other half, he's a farmer. He wanted to remain because there was lots of gifts available to farmers in terms of subsidies. I'm a business owner and I wanted to leave. I wanted to take back control of immigration. And actually, ironically, neither of us voted. We were lying in a field in Glastonbury. And we had this conversation that he was one way and I was the other. And therefore, we cancelled each other out. So therefore, it was okay that we hadn't voted because we were lying in a field in Glastonbury. So, but that's where we are on that situation.
Why did you vote to leave?
I've got an ex-missus who's Turkish, and I was rather afraid that we'd have all the Turks over here. And an ex-missus who's completely bonkers is quite enough.
Okay, it's his ex-wife. All right. So he was lied to. He was lied to by Boris Johnson and Vote Leave, or was it Leave EU, that were saying that Turkey would join. Well, Turkey didn't join. Turkey were not going to join. And as we know, member states have a veto. So Britain could have vetoed Turkey's membership of the EU. So there was no Turkish threat. But this guy voted because he doesn't like his ex-wife's family, and he believed, if I vote to leave the EU, this is the most insane reason to vote leave I've ever heard. Somebody, because he had some sort of disagreement with his ex-wife's family, that's why he voted leave, to keep them out. Has this guy never heard of, like, a restraining order? No, I'm going to fuck up the entire economy of my country because I couldn't be bothered getting a restraining order.
Thank you.
The 1,000 a day perhaps coming over in these dinghies, I know that I feel sorry for them because they're escaping from terrible times, but why do they go through so many countries to seek asylum in England?
Okay, these answers tell you a lot. Notice he says England and not Britain. Anyway, they want to claim asylum in Britain because they have friends, family, connections in Britain. They speak English, probably. That's why they're claiming asylum in Britain. They don't feel safe in France because they have. Imagine if we took this guy and we said, we're going to drop you in a country. Would you prefer that we drop you in a country where, I don't know, you have family or you don't have family? Where you speak the language or you don't speak the language? If you had a choice, where would you prefer to be dropped? Where would you travel to? Do these people not understand the reason why people are claiming asylum in the UK?
When there's other countries there, because it's an easy ride and the government's got to listen to us. I'm only one voice, but something needs addressing. It needs sorting out. You can't keep letting them come, putting them in hotels and paying thousands of pounds a week to house them.
Why do you think they're being housed in these hotels? Why is nobody actually asking any questions? Asking, why do you think they're being put in hotels? I don't know. Nigel Farage said.
And then there's other poor people here, what's from England, what's homeless, and they're laid on the streets.
Now, I can imagine, I don't know this guy, but I imagine if you were to say, well, let's build a homeless shelter in your town, would you have a problem with that? Probably yes. So, or would you be willing to pay more in taxes to help the homeless? He'd probably say no. I don't know if he would or not, but I imagine, because every time you say, let's do something for the homeless, and it's away from the context of immigration, they will say, oh, well, they're lazy and they're drug addicts and they don't deserve any help, and why should my tax pounds go to pay for these people? All they do is, take drugs all day and watch TV, and, why should we help them? I didn't get any help when I was a kid. So this is the attitude, I'm not saying from this guy, but that's the general attitude from people who say, oh, we need to look after our own first. Okay, then as soon as you ask them to step up to the plate to look after our own first, they say, no, well, we don't want to look after these people.
How does that work?
Did you vote to leave the EU?
No, I didn't. I didn't vote at all.
What was it about the Leave movement that appealed to you?
Well, how can I say? I suppose it's trying to look after your own and look after your people in the town.
And then what happened to these people? Like, once again, I don't understand this connection between we need to look after our own, and then when somebody turns around and says, okay, let's look after our own, let's look after people who are homeless, let's look after people who are disabled, let's look after... And they don't want to put their hand in their pocket, or they don't want taxes raised. And if you look at all the Tory MPs, how did they vote when it came to increasing benefits for people who are ill, for example? They voted against it. So the Brexiteers in Parliament will say, we need to look after our own. But when it comes to a vote, I'm not going to vote to look after our own. Like, why is this we need to look after our own never challenged?
And when you look around the town, look at the murder rate around the town. You've only got to look, it's just, people need to start looking at this town. It's terrible. It's a place where I don't want to be anymore. I've lived in the town all my life. I don't want to be in this town.
Well, what's that got to do with the EU? It's actually, being outside the EU makes it worse, because at least when you're in the EU, structural funds can be provided to help deprived areas. There's a website, I don't have the link now, but there's a website that you can go to, and it will, and if anyone remembers the name of the website, post it in the chat. But there's a website where, I think it's like My EU or EU for Me or something like that, where you can put in your postcode and it will show you what projects the EU funded in your area. Now, this is a wonderful website, and apologies, I should have it, on on favorites or something. But it's a website where you can find out where, how money was spent in your area, where it went to. And this was, as I've said before, this is money for deprived areas. It's not to prop up some politician, make sure that they get elected at the next election.
Because I personally believe everybody has the right to try and better themselves and bring their family along for the ride. If you want to come and work in our country and we need you, come. If you don't, if you're here for a payment holiday and benefits, then don't come.
Did you vote?
But nobody is there for that. Literally nobody. People who are coming to Britain, even if they're most, people who are maybe claiming asylum just to get into the country, to work in the black economy, they're there to work. They're there to make some money. No one, I really don't believe that there's anyone coming in to get benefits. Really. It doesn't make any sense, because if you look at if you look at the immigrant families, 99% of them are working. They don't come to Britain to stay on the dole. They come to Britain to improve their lives. Like, if you're living in a poor country and you come to Britain and you realize, well, if I work, I can make, huge amounts of money. And a lot of people send money back home. If they're on benefits, they're not going to be able to send anything back home. So they work their arses off to provide for their family in the UK, and then to send some money back to their home country if they can. But if you're going to be on benefits, you're not going to be able to do that. Like, what's the real point of going to the UK to live on benefits when benefits are not enough to live on? If there are people on universal credit who have to go to food banks, how long do you think somebody who has come to the UK would last doing that? They say, to hell with this, I'm going back home.
Vote to leave.
Yes.
Are you happy with how Brexit has gone?
No.
Why are you not happy about it?
When you look at it, I didn't really look at it in depth. You look at the, how can I say, you lose your collective bargaining. I was duped really, I suppose. I jumped.
Well said. Look, kudos to this guy for being honest. He was duped. He was told by the likes of Farage and Boris Johnson and Michael Gove that everything will be fine. Everything will not just be fine, everything will be better. And as he was talking about earlier, there was crime in the area, there were problems, social problems in the area, and you had somebody like Farage come along and say, look, the problem is the EU. We're sending all this money to Brussels. And what are they doing in Brussels? They're making ridiculous laws about bendy bananas and 3-pin plugs and stuff like this. And what we should be doing is we should be using this money to help our communities. Now, if there's no one on the other side saying that's not what's going to happen, or those voices are very quiet, then the average person is going to go, well, look, yeah, well, this guy sounds pretty legitimate. He's been in Brussels. He knows how things work. He probably understands the ins and outs of these things. And what he's telling me is things will get better. Well, things are pretty shit around here. So if somebody's going to sell us the idea that it's going to get better, then I'll vote for that. And look, I don't. Obviously, he was conned, and he realizes that, and he's honest enough to admit it. There are very few people willing to do that. But unfortunately, his vote went to help this damage.
Jumped on that bandwagon of, yeah, let's get out and get. No, I was wrong.
So you regret it?
Oh yeah, 100%.
What's something that would really improve people's lives in Boston?
Smiling. I'm going to go completely off the bat. Smiling, being nice to each other, stop attacking each other, looking for common goals.
Okay, I'm not sure how that's got to do with Brexit, but it's interesting. Like, you have probably one person after, out of all of the people interviewed that was saying, I still support Brexit, because he was talking about how it's undemocratic, the EU is undemocratic or whatever. That's the most Brexity town in Britain. So if more and more people there are deciding, well, it's actually been a bad idea, then maybe there is hope. It's not all gone. We have a super chat from... Oh, I hope I didn't miss it. Number 3, thanks so much for that. I've read about the homeless argument elsewhere. This homeless argument, so yeah, we need to look after our own first, when in reality it doesn't work like that. If the government the government don't spend money on homeless people. You know why? Because homeless people don't vote. They either can't vote, or they're well, in most cases they can't vote because they don't have a fixed address, and they have maybe bigger problems to deal with than saying I need to get down to the voting office, the polling office, and vote for whichever candidate. And if you're a homeless person, who are you going to vote for? Who's standing on your side? We have another super chat. Thanks for that, number 3. Yeah, but it's this sort of false argument of we need to look after our own, when in reality it's not about looking after our own. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Congratulations to RHS on her new job. Who's RHS? I'm completely lost at the moment. Who's RHS? You don't have to send me a super chat to tell me. Maybe somebody in the chat can tell me. Thanks for that super chat. I'm really embarrassed now. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat as well. This is what annoys me so much about this country. Many people are so bloody ignorant that they believe the bollocks. Not their fault, of course. Not always their fault. Look, it's important to, everyone has a duty to understand what they're voting for. And that's why I'm a huge advocate for people voting according to policy and not personality. And if more people had actually thought about the policies back in 2019, Boris Johnson would not have been elected, because a lot of people voted and they said, I'm voting for Boris, when in reality they were voting for the party, and they weren't able to name any of the policies. And this is the problem. It's a sort of American-style presidential election. The elections have turned into these personality contests. And of course, on one side you had Jeremy Corbyn, on the other you had Boris Johnson. And you know, Jeremy Corbyn's policies, I think 90% of the people in the country would have supported them. But because Jeremy Corbyn was attached to them, they were like, oh no, I'm not going to vote for Jeremy Corbyn. Boris Johnson's policies were what? Get Brexit done and levelling up. Well, levelling up has gone in the bin, and what the hell did get Brexit done mean? Nothing. It was an empty slogan. So, you know, there were real policies on the Labour side, but the guy selling them was pretty poor, okay? He had too much baggage. I'm not going to go down that road. We've talked it to death. But people should be voting on policies, not on personalities. Because at the end of the day, it's the party that will push through the policies. It doesn't matter who's at the top. You know, the person at the top is the one who'll be answering questions or avoiding questions, as the case may be with Boris Johnson in the House of Commons, meeting with world leaders or whatever. But it's really the party that are in charge, the party that is deciding how things operate and deciding the policies. Nico, thanks so much for that super chat. Congratulations to RHS on our new job again, Max. Jenny, sorry. All right, yes. Random Scottish history. Yes, thanks. Sorry, RHS. I was like, what? Random Scottish history. Well, congratulations to Jenny on that on our new job. Well done. It'd be great to have her on the Sunday roast. It won't be this week, but it'd be probably one of the next weeks, and we want to talk about Scotland, of course, and the way forward for as the referendum is pretty much off the table now, so it'd be interesting. Sorry, the Scottish history. I was like, RHS? I was like, no, I didn't know who it was, so I'm so sorry. I knew I was going to be embarrassed. Thanks so much, Nico, and congratulations once again to Jenny. Really happy for her. Magic says, thanks so much, Magic. Tory councillor says, smile and stop asking questions. I didn't know she was a Tory councillor. I should have double checked. No, but it's of course, you know, stop complaining. You know, there isn't really a cost of living crisis. Nurses are not really going to food banks, so just smile and everything will be fine. That's a new one, all right. Thanks so much, Magic. England 0, USA 0, 0-0. Sorry, Max finally got there. So apologies. I was like, RHS. Who is RHS? It's not the. I was thinking it was for a moment I thought it was going to be, you know, somebody sent to the House of Lords or something. And then it was like, no, better than the House of Lords. Okay, guys, so let's move on. There's an update on some stories from today. The Levelling Up Minister, Dehanna Davison, has become the latest Tory MP to announce that they're standing down at the next election. Davison was only 29 and was elected in 2019, not 2109, 2019. Yeah, she was one of the Boris bunch who came in 2019 on the back of Get Brexit Done. She has an 8,000 seat majority, but she's afraid she's going to lose that at the next election. RHS is the Royal Horticultural Society. Downing Street has expanded the inquiry into alleged bullying by Dominic Raab to include a third formal complaint related to claims about his behaviour in a ministerial role. Allegedly, he threw tomatoes at someone. What is it with all these? You had Priti Patel bullying people, and that was settled out of court. Allegedly, sorry. We also had what's his name, Gavin Williamson, bullying people allegedly. I don't was he convicted or not? I don't know. I have to say allegedly. And he had a whip on his frigging desk that he showed off to people. And now you have Dominic Raab. On the Sunday roast, I was asking about how, how did Gavin Williamson sound when he was telling people like to jump out a window or something? How would you take him seriously? His voice is like that of, what was that? Some mothers do have him, Frank Spencer. That's what he sounds like. I wouldn't be able to take him seriously. Be like, what? Are you serious? Yeah, right. Anyway, Rishi Sunak has said that, well, of course it's serious because of the power dynamic there. You have a minister, and these people can't be sacked. We've seen that before. Boris Johnson hasn't sacked these people. If you're a manager in a company, if you're an executive even, you can be sacked for doing these things. You would be sacked in most cases. But MPs can't be sacked. Ministers can't be sacked unless it's by the leader of the party or the party themselves. And when it came to Priti Patel, Boris Johnson had no intention of sacking her. Goes on to say, Rishi Sunak, I want to get to this, I might do a video on this tomorrow. Rishi Sunak has said that the pay rise being asked by the Royal College of Nursing is obviously unaffordable. The Royal College of Nursing is asking for an RPI inflation plus 5%, which has been estimated by the government at either 17.6% or 19.2%, depending on whether you use the September's inflation rate or October's. The government claims that this would cost either 9 billion or 10 billion pounds, but the Royal College of Nursing does not accept these figures, which the government calculates by assuming all NHS staff, apart from doctors, would get the same pay rise because they are all under the same agenda for change pay regime. So, of course, the Tories and the government are trying to fiddle the numbers here to make it look worse. When they're trying to sell something, they'll fiddle the figures to make it look cheaper. When they're trying to, trying to deny someone something, of course they're going to say, "Oh, it's more expensive." This is about. It's about the same money. Look, the government figures are wrong, so obviously it's less. But we're probably talking about something in the range of how much the government paid for PPE that was unusable. So it was okay to buy PPE. Well, and even worse than that, we're talking probably about the money that they could have brought in if they got rid of non-dom status. So, Rishi Sunak's wife, which had or has, I don't remember which it is. So you get rid of that, you could bring in about 3 or 4 billion pounds. A little more than that would pay for the nurses' increase in salary. But they don't want to do that because, that'd be like helping people. You don't want to do that. You want to help the millionaires who don't pay tax in the country. I remember, I think it was, who was it? The Chancellor, Jeremy Hunt, who was saying that, if we tax these millionaires, they'll go away. I was like, okay. Well, then if they go away, but then they're not paying tax anyway. We're going to lose these people. What are you going to lose from them? Well, they buy the odd Rolls Royce, or maybe they buy an expensive flat in the centre of London. Yeah, but those flats will be sold anyway. Like if they don't buy them, somebody else will. If somebody doesn't buy the Rolls Royce, if they don't buy the Rolls Royce, somebody else will buy the Rolls Royce. Like, it's a ridiculous argument. 8 billion for PPE fraud, non-dom possibly 2 billion per year, every year. Well said. FSM, thanks so much for that super chat. Much of what the nurses get paid gets spent. us tax. Very, very good point there. At least, at least if you give it to the nurses, they're going to spend it in the local economy. Give it to non-doms, what are they going to do? Squirrel it away in offshore bank accounts. Or worse than that, or maybe, I don't know if it's worse, they'll buy assets, which drives up the price of housing for everyone. So it's more difficult for ordinary people to get on the property ladder. Rishi Sunak has been criticised over the reappointment of Jacob Rees-Mogg's business partner. It's tin pot dictatorship or banana republic antics going on here. Jacob Rees-Mogg's business partner as a trade minister after the Conservative peer suggested farmers could be helped to turn their barns into offices or whatever if they were hit by post-Brexit trade deals. So farmers, there you have it. My God, I hope there's a video of that. Stu, thanks so much for that super chat. They have spent the apparent money on their mates. Yes, what's her name? I forget. A member of the House of Lords was given how much money for a PPE contract, even though her company didn't make PPE. But yeah, farmers could turn their barns into offices or whatever if they get hit by So yeah, we signed this trade deal with Australia. It's actually going to decimate farming in the UK. But if you're going to close down, you could maybe rent out your barn as an office. What is wrong with these people? Are they insane? Are they really that stupid? And finally, another Brexit benefit. Universities could go bankrupt if the government limits the number of foreign students in a bid to bring down net migration. An advisor on immigration policy has warned. Once again, trying to keep... We need to destroy the economy in order to keep the racists and bigots happy. Because the racists and bigots voted for the Conservatives back in 2019. They voted to get Boris to get Brexit done. They voted for Brexit in 2016. Some of them have actually, maybe not so much the racists and bigots, but some of the people who voted for Brexit have decided it was probably a bad idea. And we need to keep those people happy. At least the racists and bigots, we need to keep them happy because they might go and vote for a more extreme racist and bigot party like, I don't know, UKIP or Reform UK or whatever the next Nigel Farage pulls out of his behind. Good point, Max. They are insane. Where's the investigation? Prison for Gove. Anyway, moving on. This is so another Dehanna Davison joins list of Tories standing down at the next election, probably because she feels that she's going to lose her seat, and if she loses her seat, her career is pretty much over. So it's better to leave. It's better not to fight the election and lose your seat. It's better just to go, because I think she has a job with GB News or something. So at the same time as being a member of Parliament. Now I know there are others who do that, like David Lammy. David Lammy has a job on LBC, but I don't understand why you should be allowed to have that. Like, I like David Lammy, but I don't think it's correct that he's on LBC. He has a job as an MP. He should only have this job, and this should apply to all of them. Like, why are they writing newspaper articles or columns? Like, how many times have you seen, a new article? I know not many of us see them, but some people see them. The articles in the Express from, I don't know, Ian Duncan Smith. Why does that? Why is he getting paid to write articles for the Daily Express or the Daily Mail or the Telegraph? They have a job. Their job is to be a member of Parliament, to represent their constituents. Now, if they don't make enough money doing that, then they should, as they say to people who are on universal credit, get a better job. Get a better paying job. If I really wish I was in the audience of Question Time or something like that, and when one of these politicians would say, well, if people are on universal credit and they're not happy with it, then they should go and get a better job. And I'd say the same. I would say back to them, well, you write articles for one of these newspapers. Why are you doing that? If you're not earning enough money as an MP, then go get a better job. Adam, thanks so much for that super chat. Great to see you, Adam. Hope you're well. Evening all. My sister-in-law has just retired from midwifery. I just bought her used NHS supply company Bentley at a knockdown price. Replaced my Lambo. That's what all the applause brought. My God, yes. Great to have you on the stream. Thanks so much for that super chat. I don't even think that the NHS is going to be sold off at this stage. It's just going to be given away to Tory donors or friends of the party. Thanks, Adam. Thank you very much. It's very kind of you. We have a super chat from Brad. Neoliberals exploit the 99% and then make them blame each other when some of them stand up for fair pay and rights and call them communists. Exactly. And I've been saying it's about dividing and conquering people. It's always about, telling people, and it comes from the top, it comes from the richest in society. They're telling the middle class, look, these working class people are coming to take your savings. They're coming to take your home. If they move into your area, they're going to drive down the price of property. That's going to harm you economically. Look at all these homeless people living off the state. Why don't they get jobs? What about all these single mothers with 25 children? Why don't they go out and get a job? And the middle class and the upper middle class are being drip fed this sort of propaganda. And then what do? You have working class people who are told, well, you need to be angry with the immigrants because they're coming over, and what are they doing? They're staying in 5-star hotels when your gran has to sleep in a cold flat and nobody cares about her. This is what the media have been doing. It's about convincing people who have something that somebody else is coming to take it from them, and convincing people who have pretty much nothing that there are other people who have literally nothing who are coming to take that from them as well. And you're always told never to look up. Never look at who is telling me this and why are they saying it? Why is the likes of the Daily Mail, the Express, the Sun telling me to be angry with people who have less than I have? What is their game? What is their goal here? Why are they never telling me to be angry with non-doms or people who have millions and billions, maybe not billions, but millions squirreled away in offshore bank accounts? Why aren't I being told to be angry with people who were given contracts to make PPE when they had no business making PPE in the first place? Why shouldn't I be angry with the people who are continually being pushed onto media outlets to sell the idea that the NHS is broken and needs to be sold off, that nurses are greedy, that all they care about is more money, that they don't care about the patients, that they see other people getting money in the private sector and they want to have some of that as well? Why don't people just take a step back and go, why is the likes of the Sun and the Daily Mail telling me to think this? What do they get out of it? Thanks, Brad. Reagan Ali, thanks so much for that super chat. Is Sue Gray going to report on Rab's investigation? Yeah, that'll take a while. Well said. And then maybe I don't know who will deliver it in. It'd be constant. You have to wait for Sue Gray's report. Did Dominic Raab throw tomatoes at people? Threaten to throw them out of buildings or something? Well, you have to wait for Sue Gray's report. Even Dominic Raab would be like, Dominic Raab, did you threaten to throw people out of a building, or did you throw tomatoes at people in order to intimidate them and use your position of power over them? Well, you have to wait for Sue Gray's report on that. Davison, it says here, Davison's departure may surprise many, as she has been appointed as the junior minister in the Department of Levelling Up, Housing and Communities. Once again, the Levelling Up department is a bit like the Brexit Opportunities department. It's not doing anything, and represents one of the hard-won red wall constituencies. She became the Bishop Auckland's first Conservative MP with a majority of about 8,000. She says, for my whole adult life, I've dedicated the vast majority of my time to politics and to make people's lives better. No, that's a lie. You're not dedicating your life to making other people's lives better. You're dedicating your political life to making people's lives worse. Do I have to bring up your voting record? She said in a statement. But to be frank, it has meant that I haven't had anything like a normal life for of a 20-something. Then why did you get into this? There was an opportunity, probably for, to make some money. This is what it's about. I'm able to boost my profile, get some money out of this as well. It's 82 to 85,000 pounds a year. Okay, and then because she's young, she's able to present herself, on these media outlets like GB News. She's invited on to host her own show, I think. So she's probably saying, well, I've used Parliament as a springboard for my, entertainment career. And many people do that. But don't come out with this, I got into politics to make lives better, make the lives of people better. Jesus Christ. Streeter, former Shadow International Development Secretary, voted for Remain in 2016's EU referendum before later backing Theresa May's Brexit deal. The 67-year-old MP from South West Devon, who has held the seat since 1997, has a majority of more than 21,000, told his constituents he had great confidence in Rishi Sunak's leadership, as he announced he would not stand again. I have a huge amount of confidence, massive confidence, great confidence in Rishi Sunak. Now I'm abandoning him. I love the way that, the dishonesty of these people. Oh my God. Earlier in the week, the former Work and Pension Secretary Chloe Smith and the influential backbencher William Ragg both announced that they would be stepping down at the next election. So what are they doing next? The Conservative Party is braced for a growing exodus of MPs as polls show that they're facing a huge challenge to recover popularity. It's possible that some of these will not stand at the next election, but they could come back in the future. That's also a possibility. Adam, thanks so much for that super chat. It could come back in in another party as well, switching to, I don't know, UKIP or whatever Nigel Farage pulls out of his arse. Adam, thanks so much for that super chat. Thanks for all the offers to buy the Lambo. I donated it to Jacob Rees-Mogg because his course failed its MOT. Jacob Rees-Mogg needs help, obviously. Sorry, and all that. How is he going to drive it with his top hat on? That's the question of the day. How's Jacob Rees-Mogg going to drive it? Oh no, stupid question. He won't drive it. He'll have a chauffeur. It'll be a chauffeur-driven Lamborghini. That's it. Thanks for that. And I don't believe for a second that his course failed the MOT. He just, get it forced through. He'll pull a few strings and make sure that it passed the MOT. Max, do you think the union has a long-term future? No, it doesn't. Look, people think, and unionists in particular think, particularly in Scotland, believe that this week strengthened the union, but it didn't. I think it's actually driven more people to the side of independence because people were expecting a referendum, and now they're told that, well, Westminster is not going to give them a referendum. You're not allowed a referendum. Who decides if we have a referendum in Scotland? Rishi Sunak does. And before him, Liz Truss did. And before her, Boris Johnson did. And before him, Theresa May did. So and you can go back and back. These are the people who will decide. not the people of Scotland. So the people of Scotland are not allowed to decide whether they have a referendum or not. It depends on the Prime Minister in Westminster. And it's something I find interesting is how England doesn't have a parliament. Now, if England had a parliament, and I'm not talking about Westminster, I'm talking about an English parliament, I think you would have maybe a fairer society, because then Scotland would say, well, if the Scottish people want to leave the Union, then it's not up to England to decide. It's not up to Wales to decide. It's not up to Northern Ireland to decide. It's up to Scotland to decide. But there isn't an English parliament. There's a sort of English parliament, and it's called Westminster. Now, officially it's the UK parliament, but it's stopping Scotland from holding a referendum. How is that democratic? How is that fair as a society? Like, they say it's a voluntary union, but you're not allowed to leave. So if you're told you're not allowed to leave, then the people who say we're going to leave anyway, more and more people will join that group. The ones who say we're going to find another way to leave. And I've said before, I think the best way is to go down the electoral route. You vote in the and I've heard the Labour Party and the Conservatives in Scotland saying, well, we wouldn't recognise the SNP's manifesto if they said that the vote would be a vote on independence. So if you vote for the SNP at the next election, that's a de facto referendum for independence. And the Tories and the Labour Party said we wouldn't recognise that. But it doesn't matter if you recognise that, it's whether the voters recognise that. It's not up to you. You don't decide, unless you have a majority, you don't decide how things work. What an arrogant thing to say. It's like, I'm in the minority, well, I'm going to decide if we're getting on the bus or not. No, the majority will decide. That's the way democracy is supposed to work. My God. Sunroof Max. I'm not sure what that's about. Tom, thanks so much for that super chat. What can be done in England to reform the pro-unionist and monarchy media press and raise standards? I think it has to start from the top. Most of these things have to start from the top, but also from the bottom. The public need to push the politicians, and the politicians, in a sense, have to lead. It's a bit like when I say about protests. Protests need to take place outside Parliament, but also in Parliament, if you want to have the maximum effect. You know, you can march all day, but if politicians are not on your side, then you're not going to make much progress. And that's why it's important to have people protesting, in a sense, in the Parliament as well. Have it synchronized. And I think the same has to happen with reform in England. What can be done in England to reform the pro-unionist and monarchy media? I don't know what can be done to reform the media. The problem is that it's run by people whose interest is not informing the public. And these people are also interested in getting rid of the BBC, because the BBC should, be neutral, should be balanced, should represent the voices of ordinary people. That's what's supposed. It shouldn't be a state apparatus to push a particular agenda. That's not what it should be about. It's a very difficult question you asked, Tom. I think you need a government who actually believes in democracy, and you need a government that believes in what's right for ordinary people and what ordinary people want. So that it needs to be listening to ordinary people. But the Tories at the moment aren't doing that. And unfortunately, because of first past the post, Keir Starmer isn't really listening to ordinary people. He's listening to people in the red wall who he needs to win over, the people who voted for the Tories in 2019. So I think it needs to start at the top. You need a party in power who will reform many things. One positive step towards that would be changing the electoral system from first past the post to proportional representation. I think that would help a great deal, because you would have parties in Parliament that would be more representative of the people. And people would feel more empowered, because a vote would actually go to a party that represents my opinions. At the moment, you're voting, in a sense, many people are holding their nose and voting for a party to keep another party out. And that's not how democracy should be. But it's a very interesting question, and it's something you could do a whole video on. Thanks, Tom. Alistair, great to see you once again. Thanks for that super chat. Red Wall Tory MPs leaving before pushed, Max. Yes, they don't want to face by-elections. They don't want to see them. They don't want to be deselected, and I think a lot of them, if they lose their seat at the next election, they don't want to come back. They don't want to be. They don't want to be in a position where they face an embarrassment. So I think that's what a lot of them are doing. Thanks for that super chat. Alistair, again, thanks so much. Max, Albatross colony of Scotland, Northern England. You know, people like Jacob Rees-Mogg view Scotland and Wales and Northern Ireland as a sort of English county. And I'm not hitting on the English here. You know, I have a lot of friends in England, and I think a lot of people in England understand what I'm talking about. But, you know, there's a sort of exceptionalism that views other parts of the United Kingdom as, and this is from the Tories. I don't think the Labour Party is like this. I hope the Labour Party is not like this. I don't think they are. But there is this sort of Tory belief that, you know, these people are somewhat inferior to us. I truly believe that. If you listen to the way, like Jacob Rees-Mogg once was quoting Latin, and then when somebody from the the main Welsh party, pro-independence party in Wales, Plaid Cymru, when they stood up and spoke in Welsh, Jacob Rees-Mogg complained about foreign languages in the House of Commons. So he spoke Latin. He had no problem speaking Latin, but as soon as somebody spoke Welsh, it was a foreign language to him. A foreign language. My wife loves Welsh and Irish, and she, when I told her about that, she had foam coming out of her mouth. But it's like, you know, people like Jacob Rees-Mogg, of course, Jacob Rees-Mogg views everyone as inferior to him because they weren't born with a silver or golden spoon in their mouth. They weren't raised by a nanny, and, you know, he's probably still raised by a nanny. You know, there's this class divide, and, you know, you have people of a lower class below you, and then you have the Scots or the Irish or the Welsh or foreigners or whatever. There's a real, you know, it's not just xenophobia. I think there's a type of racism involved with it as well. And this is what I'm talking about, this Tory class or the upper class. That's the way they view the world. So we are superior. We're superior to people within the country, and we're superior to people outside the country. Thanks, Alistair. This is my view. I don't know if it's true or not, but that's what I observe. David, thanks so much for that super chat. Great to have you on the stream. HMP Scotland, hi from the colony. Great to have you on, and be great to chat with you and Random Scottish History in the future about what happened this week. Be great to pick your brains on that, because what's the way forward? Actually, we're halfway through the stream, so we'll have our short break. I hope you enjoyed this clip. I'm sure you will, and we'll be back in just a second with some serious stuff. Oh, we have Brad W again. Brad, thanks so much for the super chat. Jacob Rees-Mogg, from a time when Latin was the official language. It's before French, when Latin was the lingua franca. Well said. You know, I think, you know, I often refer to Jacob as the right honourable gentleman from the 1800s. Maybe I'm being a bit excessive there. Maybe it's a bit further back than that. Artemis, great to see you on the stream. To be fair, Max, Latin was the native language in England for 300 years after the Normans invaded. Jacob Rees-Mogg probably remembers that time in his youth. Yes, well said.
coming into our country and raping it, raping it, raping it.
Kent, the Garden of England. But now, this garden is being invaded. I talk, of course, about the immigrant.
We got bleeding loads of them around here. Indians and Pakistanis.
I'm not being racist, but we can't cope. They're coming into our country and raping it.
Raping this country.
Raping the country of anything that they can get, anything they can steal, anything they can take.
Does it concern you that immigrants can come over here and just disguise themselves as human beings?
Yes. They're all thieving, they're all dog napping and everything else they're trying to do.
What we've seen so far in Folkestone is a definite concern. There's a sense of fear and dread that the country is being overrun. And as you can see from this high street, it's absolutely packed. How do we know that they're not here among us now? I mean, I worry about it every day.
No idea.
It may look quite clear, but how do we know that immigrants aren't disguising themselves as holiday makers on paddleboards? We don't. And that is the problem.
Muslims are taking over everywhere.
You've read the Quran?
Yeah, I have. What they're doing is trying to stamp their religion onto British citizens.
And some of them literally want to turn Buckingham Palace into a mosque.
Yep. 100%. They would do if they had their way.
They would. As you can see here, the local council have had to construct a defensive wall to keep the illegals out. And that, my friends, is as bad as the situation has got.
I'd like to stick some gunships out into the middle of the water and stop anyone coming in.
Well, I'd actually just take them out before they get here.
Indeedly doodly.
Just drown them at sea, I say. Drown them at sea, eh?
Right, yeah. I suppose so, yeah.
Well, there you have it. If you do come down here, if you dare, make sure you bring an interpreter. This is Dale Maley reporting from Kent in Afghanistan.
Wonderful. For people who don't know, that is satire. Okay, just in case. Oh, wonderful. Okay. This was an interesting story that I made a video a couple of days ago where I think there's some cracks appearing in Rishi Sunak's government, and we've seen today how some MPs are willing to stand down at the next election. It says here, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss join rebel Tory bid to lift ban on onshore wind farms. So on Wednesday, Simon Clarke, the former Levelling Up Secretary, tabled an amendment to the Levelling Up bill that would lift the ban on onshore wind farms. The amendment did not receive a lot of attention because the government's main problem with the bill is that it's coming not from the pro-development Tories like Clarke, but from the anti-development Tories backing the amendment that would abolish mandatory housing targets. Downing Street still has not decided whether to appease the rebels or face them down, but the Clarke amendment is now looking much more interesting because it has attracted the support of two high-profile backbenchers, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss. So this amendment, to move the following clause, onshore wind application within 6 months of this act coming into force, the Secretary of State must reverse the national planning policy framework in accordance with the objective subsection 2. The objective in this subsection is to ensure the guidance permits local planning authorities to grant onshore wind applications for the purpose of installing new sites not previously used for generating wind power and something else. During her short premiership, Truss said she wanted to reverse the ban on onshore wind developments, and so her decision to back the amendment is not surprising. But Boris Johnson did not lift the ban during the 3 years in number 10, which makes his decision to sign the amendment more intriguing. Perhaps he's attracted by the campaign that might destabilise Rishi Sunak, who he blames for helping to end his premiership. Or it might be just that, as someone more committed to net zero than the most senior Tory, he is genuinely in favour of more onshore wind. Look, if Boris Johnson didn't do it in 3 years, it's not because he cares, okay, about wind. He's signing this amendment to piss off Rishi Sunak, or to make his life a bit more difficult. He still feels, that he was stabbed in the back, and Brutus was Rishi Sunak, and look at he's a spiteful narcissist, so of course he's going to lash out I don't believe for a second Boris Johnson's backing this because he cares about net zero or he cares about the environment. It's about scoring points against Rishi Sunak. That's it. You know, what other, really, would anyone, because if he had been working towards, you know, making sure that the government could reach these net zero targets, then you could sort of believe it. But no, this is Boris Johnson we're talking about. Do anything just to get back at people. You know, Rishi Sunak isn't a journalist, so he won't get beaten up. But, you know, if Boris Johnson could, he probably would support that. Stormer says Tory party now too divided to govern country. Stormer has also accused the Tories of blocking essential development. He was referring to the revolt by Conservatives who want the government to abolish mandatory house building targets, where the government is on the pro-development side, and the dispute on onshore wind, where the government is on the anti-development side. Both rows show the Tories could not govern in the interest of the country because they were divided. Yeah, so you have the parties split down the middle, or not split down the middle, but split over these two policies about mandatory house building and onshore wind. Stommer said, what we've seen particularly in the last few days is division and argument. And this is actually something good for the Labour Party, because the Labour Party have always been seen as divided. But under Starmer, whether you like Starmer or not, you can say the party is divided. They're 100% behind Starmer. Now, there are, of course, voices against Starmer, but these people are pretty much outside the party. They're not in the party. Yeah, there are the odd MPs who disagree with Starmer, but they are pretty much, you know, they have been pretty much quietened. Whether that's a good thing or not, I don't know. But Starmer knows that, you know, he can't win an election if the people don't believe that the party is united. They have to be united. And you're looking at the Tories who are split, arguing over everything and anything, and the Labour Party are singing pretty much from the same hymn sheet for all of their MPs. Adam, thanks so much for that super. Good to see the Sunday roast advertised. Still keen to have the chat, especially now that I'm back on normal hours. We'll definitely try and bring you on, because we have a long list of people that we've agreed to do Sunday roast with. So we need to get through those people, and then we definitely will have you on, Adam. It would be great to have a chat with you about so many things, very interesting things to say. Thanks for that. It says, Stormer says, what we've seen particularly in the last few days is the division and argument in the Conservative Party about planning, whether it's onshore wind farms, which are vital for our energy security, bringing down prices, or whether it's homes which are vital. That quarrelling, those arguments are not just internal Conservative Party issues; they have an impact. It means that we're not getting cheaper, secure energy as quickly as we should. And here Stormer is making hay. You know, he's really taking advantage of this division, which he should be doing, because that's politics. They're killing off the dream of home ownership because they can't agree among themselves. Their entire party are a divided party, and they're not really any longer able to show that they can govern the country. And this sort of thing these sort of debates and arguments will bring down a government, I should say. Anyway, moving on. I'll start with this.
Let's get more now on the latest.
No, that's not what I wanted. Wait a minute. No, I wanted to bring up the nurses' strike. Sorry. Here we go.
I came in thinking it's a better career and the best decision. But then I'm thinking, is it really? Because after going to university and studying, do I really have to go through this?
Victoria Kamfula only became a nurse 3 years ago, and already she's questioning whether it was the right decision. She loves her job, but says her workload is unsustainably high, and money left in her pocket at the end of each month too low.
It's a struggle. It is. And then you're continuously in debt. you know, and that's what I'm saying. For how long is this going to go? Because it reaches a point whereby we're all humans and you get tired, you know, you get fed up. If there's no change, then maybe I would have to think about a different career, because I can't keep doing the same thing and there's no change. Then what else can I do? Because my children come first, and I don't want to end up homeless.
Today, nurses in England, Wales and Northern Ireland announced the biggest strike in NHS history on the 15th and 20th of December to demand a pay rise.
The NHS is one of the few areas where the government committed to spending more in the last budget. But union bosses argue that the pay rise offered to nurses in the summer needs to be increased too, because staff are struggling to make ends meet and demoralised nurses are leaving the profession in droves, which they say is compromising patient safety.
And this is what, you know, if nurses are leaving because of the workload and the stress and the conditions and the pay, and they're leaving because they can't, you know, they can't continue in these conditions, this is compromising safety for staff, but staff and for patients. And this is the fault of the government. The government should be stepping in and saying, okay, how do we hold on to these people? How do we make sure that they stay? And, you know, as I said before, if one nurse leaves, the ones who are left behind will have to accept and take on the workload of that one who left. Tom, thanks so much for that super chat. What are your thoughts on the current speaker and the previous one not getting a peerage in the Commons, as is the custom? Sorry. How long before we get a new speaker? I don't know when the election will take place for the next speaker. I'm not sure what, you know, is it when the government change, or is it a set period of time? Because John Bercow was speaker for a number of years, and but the current guy, Sir Lindsay Hoyle, is, I've called him all sorts of names under the sun. I've called him a chocolate teapot, a chocolate fire guard. Was it a underwater tea bag or something? Was it underwater something? I don't remember. Anyway, a waterproof tea bag or something. Completely useless, and he's more interested in procedure than actually the Parliament doing its job. Recently, he was complaining about a Tory MP being called a liar in a select committee than he was about the Tory MP lying. It was Nadine Dorris. She was called out for being a liar, and part of a report that he wrote was included in some of the evidence, and he went apeshit over it. You know, at the end of the day, Nadine Dorris was lying. Isn't that what's important? Not the procedure of whether you got permission from the speaker to use all of the statement or part of his statement or whatever. He's more interested in keeping... And with Boris Johnson, how many times did Boris Johnson lie to Parliament and people stood up and said, the Prime Minister is lying? And you said, no, you can't say that. Take it back. You know, if he had let it fly, if he had let it go, would it have made any difference, really? This crap needs to be called out. If Parliament is not able to do its job, what's the point of Parliament? If Boris Johnson or Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak stand up and don't answer questions, what's the point of it? What's the point of PMQs if the minister doesn't answer the questions? Really, it's called Prime Minister's questions. If the Prime Minister doesn't answer the question, what is the point of it all? It's just grandstanding. It's just a talking shop. Thanks, Tom. As you say, Bercow never got a peerage, and because he rubbed people the wrong way, because he wouldn't allow the crap that goes on that other, you know, in particular, Sir Lindsay Hoyle is allowing to go on. That's why he wouldn't get it. And he was probably this. He was the right speaker at the right time in a sense, but he was also for himself the wrong speaker at the wrong time because he was viewed as somebody who was standing up to the crap that was coming out over Brexit, and the Brexiteers were in charge, and the Brexiteers were deciding he's not going to be put into the House of Lords. I believe that the House of Lords should be abolished anyway, but it's, you know, it was a punishment for him for actually doing his job.
Nurse vacancies in England are currently at a record high. Over 40,000 left active service between June 2021 and this June. That's equivalent to 1 in 9 nurses. The Royal College of Nursing want a 17.6% wage hike after salaries saw a real terms cut of 20% since 2010. But
so if wages have dropped in real terms by 20% since 2010, and they're asking for a 19% pay increase, then how can Rishi Sunak turn around and say that's unaffordable? It's like, yeah, we've been getting poorer since 2010, since you took over, and now we're asking to be returned to some sort of parity, and you're saying, no, we can't do that. Magic, thanks so much for that super chat. The House of Commons must elect or re-elect its Speaker after every general election. It's the first act after MPs are sworn in. Thanks so much for that education there. So he'll probably... Well, it depends on... I would like to see a new Speaker. I think most people would like to see a new Speaker. So I do hope that he's not re-elected, but he probably will. I don't know, because the Labour Party aren't angry with him. They're not upset with him. It seems to be just people like me that's angry with him, and I have no vote in the House of Commons.
the government say the £10 billion price tag is unaffordable.
And I think most people watching will recognise that that's obviously unaffordable, and that's...
Most people, yes. Most people will say it's unaffordable. This is the type of weasel language that they use. Most people don't agree with this. Most people want to get on with their lives. Most people think this is too expensive. Most people think we're doing a wonderful job. Most people think this is too much money. Most people. Who? I think if you were to actually go out on the street and ask most people, they would say, yes, nurses deserve whatever they're actually asking for. And they're not asking for something unreasonable. They've had a 20% pay cut over the last 10 years, and they're asking for that to be replaced. How is that unreasonable? Thanks once again, Magic.
So I'm pleased that the Health Secretary is sitting down, talking to the union, and hopefully we can find a way through this.
Nurses would still do emergency and life-preserving care on strike days, but routine appointments would likely be cancelled. Marie Morgan has been waiting for 4 years for a hip replacement. Her mum is worried about the knock-on effect of strikes.
Well, with her not having this operation, she's daily in pain. And she's miserable, it's not fair on her. I want my daughter to have this operation, so this is important for me, for them not to strike.
But this may just be the...
I understand, but they're going on strike because, her daughter has been waiting 4 years. Why has her daughter been waiting 4 years? Because of these cuts. It's not just because the salaries of the wages of the nurses have not gone up to match inflation, but the NHS has been cut. The NHS budget has increased, but not in line with inflation, not with the investment that's needed. The care sector isn't getting the investment it needs, so that's why there's a backlog. That's why it's not possible to send people into care homes. That's why people are, and I don't like to use the term, but the term that is used is bed blocking. The NHS needs investment. The staffing need investment. There needs to be investment in staff. You need to hold on to people. The worse it gets, the more likely people are going to leave. And the more likely people leave, the worse it will get. And this is not something, I don't know, some Tories seem to think this can be fixed with the private sector. It's not going to be fixed with the private sector. The private sector doesn't have the capacity. Even if you were just to say, let's privatize everything from tomorrow, there isn't the capacity.
Start of disruption in the NHS. Midwives and health workers at Unison and Unite are currently being balloted on whether to strike. Physiotherapists and junior doctors will soon be too.
I'm surprised that you don't have some Tory come out and just tell people, don't get sick.
A mass walkout at the height of normal winter pressures may yet force the hand of a government determined to cut back.
Well, joining me.
I've said before, what is the point of government if it doesn't look after these two main areas, health and education? Would somebody please tell me, should these not be the priorities over everything else? I'm not saying nothing else should exist. I'm just saying these should be prioritized. Health and education. Health, because you need healthy citizens. You want to look after their health. Also, if they're not healthy, they're not going to be productive, if you want to look at it from a capitalistic point of view. But if the role of government should be to look after its citizens' health, and also its education, the education of the next generation. If you can't invest in these things, if you can't prioritize these, what is the point of having a government? And I apply this to any government around the world. What is the point in having a government? Honestly. Yes, to build roads and whatever, but if you can't prioritize, I'm not saying not to invest in things, I'm saying if you can't prioritize health and education, then I don't understand what your job is in the first place. What are you there for if you're not prioritizing those? If you're not making sure that they are funded? Because there is money. It's not that there isn't money. The government can print money if they want. They can borrow if they want. There's a cost, of course, connected to that. But if they want to, because cutting back does not actually produce growth. We've seen it before. We saw it back in 2007, 2008. We saw the austerity. We saw the recession. Like the austerity, the Tory austerity of the 2010s. What did that do? Did it produce growth? No. It went in the opposite direction. Peter, thanks so much for that super chat. Great to see you on the stream once again. Would most people be nurses on their wages? Of course they wouldn't. Like, nurses do a job that I would never be able to do. I would never be able to, if I have to give somebody an injection, I'm afraid to hurt them. I wouldn't be able to do it. And that's, one of the minor things they do. There's so many jobs they do. And there's so much responsibility. If a nurse messes up and gives someone the wrong medication, or too much or too little, there are serious consequences. That's why you don't want them overworked and overstressed. You want them to be able to enjoy their job. You want them to go home satisfied. You want them to go home looking forward to the next day. Because you don't get into nursing for the pay, okay? But you want to be able to pay, to be able to pay your bills. You don't want to be relying on a friggin' food bank. How is that acceptable to any politician? How can they say, nurses going to food banks is okay with me? Like, even Tory MPs get sick and they go into hospital. And not all of them go into private hospitals. Yes, some of them probably do, like Rishi Sunak paying £250 to jump the queue. But most will rely on the NHS in some capacity. And how do they face nurses going, like, these people are looking after me and I'm treating them like shit? I'm happy that they're going to food banks. Do they have no shame? Do they honestly feel like that? Is it like do they not have any sort of empathy at all? I really don't understand this. For me, doctors, nurses, teachers, these are people who should be respected. These are people who should be held up because they're so important. Are there bad doctors and bad nurses and bad teachers? Of course there are. But the profession should be something that is held up in society because it's so important. Anyway, I could rant for hours about this. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Oh God, heavens no, we couldn't possibly tax people an extra £5 per month in order to fund investment. £5? I'll give you 25 if the NHS can fucking function. It's there was an opportunity to tax the energy companies, the fossil fuel companies, the windfall tax. But instead they said, no, we'll add a loophole so they don't have to pay tax. There was an option to impose a tax or to get rid of non-dom status. They decided no. But is it because Rishi Sunak's friends or maybe family would have lost out there? Was that a personal choice? I'm not going to push a policy that's going to affect people like me or people very close to me that would affect them personally. No, I'm not going to do that. The poorly educated are easily led astray, Max. Very good point, Kella. The idea that, don't invest in education because then you can manipulate these people better. Don't teach children critical thinking skills. Don't teach them to ask questions. Why are you saying this? Why is this newspaper telling me to vote this particular way? Who's going to benefit from that? These are very important tools for people to have. And you don't want them if you want to be able to manipulate them. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. We need a general strike, kick the Tories out. And I think this is going to, I think you're onto something there because I think it's something that's probably going to happen. We're seeing the rail workers going on strike. We're seeing nurses going on strike. Teachers are going on strike. All that's left is the trade union Congress to say we need to organize a general strike. And this would bring the country to its knees. Now, the problem, of course, with the general strike is the media. You don't have an honest media. You have the Sun, the Express, the Daily Mail, and they will demonize anyone who goes on strike. So there is a risk that they would be able to turn. Now, what you would want is the workers in the likes of the Daily Mail and the Express and the Sun, the people who are not the editors, maybe not even the journalists, but the people who run the printing press, the people who clean the offices, the people who work the security desk. If these people went on strike, the newspapers would come crashing down. They would stop operating. So they will demonize the working class, knowing that they rely on the working class. And if the working class decide, fuck you, newspaper, right-wing newspaper, we're going on strike. Unfortunately, many of these workers are not part of a union. A long time ago they were members of a union. Now that's long gone. Most of them are probably agency staff. So if they go on strike, they'll lose their job. And of course, they're on minimum wage. So if they lose their job, they're up shit creek without a paddle. The system is well designed to protect itself. That's the problem here. And of course the media know how to divide people. You don't want class solidarity. You don't want people working together. Divide them. Tell them that if you have more to lose than Mick Lynch has to lose. Why should you listen to Mick Lynch? He's not on your side. He doesn't care if you lose your job and you can't pay your bills. That's what they will try to tell people. They've already started attacking Mick Lynch, saying, "Well, you earn lots of money. Why should people listen to you?" But number 3, you're right. Probably going to see at least some sort of general strike. Maybe not a real general strike, but you're going to see massive strike action, at least in the public sector. What it needs as well is in the private sector. No DLC, great to see you on the stream. Investment in NHS staffing isn't the kind that pays rent or management fees. Hence why short staffing and reliance on agency workers is a model they prefer. This is, I think this is the problem as well. That there's this continuous reliance on agency staff. And they're paying through the nose for this agency staff. Now the agency staff probably are not earning a lot of money, but the agent, the middleman, the one in between, is making the money here. And the NHS is running out of cash, and because they don't have the staff they need to rely on agencies, and they're of course paying through the nose for that. It's pretty depressing.
Me now is the General Secretary and Chief Executive of the Royal College of Nursing, Pat Cullen. Good evening. People might be confused hearing Rishi Sunak and the Health Secretary saying we are talking to the nurses and we are prepared to keep talking, but you are nonetheless calling strike action. Why?
Yes, well, I actually think that the Prime Minister is confused as well. I don't know who's giving him his updates, but I can make it very clear tonight that there are no formal negotiations happening with government. I have tried now for 2 weeks solidly to try and get the government to get into negotiations with the Royal College of Nursing, and that has fallen on deaf ears.
Why is the government not meeting with nurses? Because they don't want the government to be involved in this. They want the private sector, or they want the NHS to deal with the nurses. They don't want to be. They're on the side of the management. They're on the side of for example, when it comes to the rail network, for example, they're on the side of the companies. Now, when it comes to the NHS, they have a duty. The government have a duty to meet with the nurses and listen to their requests, because they're the ones who will be paying the bills, paying the wages. Sorry, they'll be the ones who decide how much they get. Now, of course, the government will say instead, well, there was an independent review board and they decided that the nurses should get 3%. Yes, but what's interesting is this was back before the cost of living crisis really kicked in, when inflation was, not 11%. And also this independent board, it's not really independent, because the members are appointed by the government. So it's not an independent in the sense of independent from the government. It's, in a sense, yes, but the people on the board are appointed by the government. It's not some sort of independent, truly independent body. So the government decide who actually is part of this board, and then they decide, well, we're going to give nurses a 3% pay increase, when in reality they need a 20% pay increase.
And they have chosen strike action over negotiations, and that's very clear. So the Prime Minister isn't being given the correct information as far as the college is concerned.
Now, in Scotland, strike action's been avoided by a pay deal that is much less than nurses wanted, but is an average of about 7.5%. Would that avoid strike action in the rest of the UK?
Well, strike action has not been avoided, and it has been suspended pending the negotiations. And I think that just sends a very clear message about the reasonableness of the profession of nursing, and indeed this Royal College, that when you get around a table with us and start to talk to us about the conditions that our nurses are working in.
And this is what she's raising here. It's not just about pay, it's about conditions. Like, it's not just about paying them more money, but you also need to improve their conditions. You need to stop the outflow of workers, and it's not just about money. You need to improve training. You need to provide reasons apart from money for people to stay in the NHS. And the government don't seem to be interested in doing that. Like, I think the rot will only stop once the Tories are gone, because they're not really interested in fixing these problems. They're never interested in fixing problems. They're only interested in blaming others. So they're blaming the nurses. Oh, why are you going on strike? What about the poor patients? Think about them for a bit.
And we just heard from that wonderful nurse, Victoria, what it's like about feeling that dreadful feeling that she may become homeless. Then what happened in Scotland was they got around a table and started to talk meaningfully with us. Yeah. Now, of course, any offer will be put to our members, our nurses that voted in their droves, in their thousands and thousands for strike action. First time in 106 years, this is something no nurse takes lightly. Being a registered nurse myself, we feel this very, very clearly
but
every
just to be
single
clear,
day.
If Rishi Sunak did what Nicola Sturgeon has done, would that stop the strike action on the 15th and the 20th? Would you put it on hold?
Get around a table and start.
See, this is hypothetical. if Rishi Sunak did this. Rishi Sunak needs to do it, and then you can decide. Because there's no point saying, yeah, well, if Rishi Sunak does this, but we don't know what the requirement is. It's not just about money. The conditions in Scotland are different to the ones in England and Wales. So it's not just a matter of Rishi Sunak doing exactly what the government in Scotland did. And he's not going to do the same as the government in Scotland did. Because at least the government in Scotland care about these things. The Tories do not care. They've demonstrated for 12 years that they don't care. Why would they care now? Like, it's a strange... I respect Channel 4 News. I think they do good journalism. But, you know, they haven't respected the nurses for 12 years. Why would they turn around and respect them now? And why would a quasi-billionaire decide to respect the nurses now? Why is a guy who wrote off 6 or 7 billion, 8 billion, in PPE, in furlough fraud, turn around and respect nurses now? Why is a guy who refused to remove non-dom status respect nurses now? Get real. Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end of the stream. Before we finish, I just wanted to do one more story. This is from an account. This is probably a reason why... another reason why the House of Lords should be abolished. It says here, this is from Scottish account Phantom Power.
Although there's not going to be a referendum, that's now clear, she's going to continue to spend money, taxpayers' money, British taxpayers' money, on civil service and other preparations for this non-existent referendum. Is this not a disgrace?
The Scottish Government should be directing their attention to matters which they have devolved responsibility for.
Given the behaviour of the Scottish Government, should we not be extending that ability to surcharge members of the devolved administrations where they incur expenditure which is ultra vires?
And will he agree with me that for this SNP to complain about democracy is to forget that they have betrayed the people of Scotland?
Although there's not...
Okay. As we've seen here, each of the House of Lords clowns cost us over £80,000 a year plus 8 million just to keep them all fed and watered. Yes, they are well, I don't know if it's 80,000, but well, they claim they can claim up to £300 a day, and they're complaining about the cost of a referendum. And you know, some of them are asleep during the proceedings. Like, you know, these people, some of them, no offense to them, some of them are really on their last legs, and it's a sort of retirement home for politicians. Okay, you know, you've spent your time in the House of Commons. Some of them are not even from the House of Commons, but off you go to the House of Lords, you know, to fill in the time, and you know, this really needs to go. It served its purpose a long time ago. You have people who are deeply corrupt in the House of Lords. You have people who have no reason to be there whatsoever. You have, you know, failed politicians, and you have people who've just lived off the public dole for years, and now they're off to the House of Lords to live off the public dole once again. So guys, we're almost at the end of the stream, so I just want to say thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for all of your super chats and your support. Smells of cabbages. Oh my goodness. There are some good people in the House of Lords, but they are the exception. Most of them are just there just to, you know, to fill in the time and collect the money at the end of the day. So £350. Sorry, I thought it was 300. Sorry, £350 a day. Anyway, guys, we're almost at the end, so I want to say thank you to everyone who came on. Thanks for smashing the like button. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job as always, and thanks to everyone who came on. Before we finish, we have our one for the road, and remember the Sunday roast this Sunday morning. We have some interesting guests on, and hope I'll see you on that. And otherwise, I'll see you next Tuesday, same bad time, same bad channel. But before we go, we have a wonderful video once again from Matt.
So, Minister, you've been sent here by Home Secretary Suella Braverman to answer questions on asylum and immigration.
That's right. She would have come herself, but she has to return a helicopter.
Do you mind if we do a bit of role play? Well, I mean, I don't have my costume and you don't look that much like my mistress, but not that kind of role play. I knew that. So, I'm a young orphan who's fleeing an African country and has a sibling who already lives here legally. How would I be able to join them and claim asylum? Which African country? Why, does that make a difference? Well, just if it's Rwanda, then I have quite a pithy answer. Let's say it's not Rwanda. Damn. Well, I would say that you should use one of our safe and legal routes. And what are they? Routes that are both safe and legal. And what does that mean? They're not going to cause you harm, and they're not against the law. No, what are these safe and legal routes? Can you give me an example? Well, I don't have time to go into all of them, obviously. Just one is fine. Well, I suppose you could get to this country and claim asylum here. How? You go to your local branch of the Home Office and fill out a form. No, how do you get to this country? Well, any of the normal ways. Planes, trains, automobiles, boats? Absolutely not, unless it's a cross-channel ferry and you have a ticket. But I'm a 16-year-old in Africa, I can't afford any of that. You know what, you're really beginning to make me care about this hypothetical child. So much easier than caring about the real ones. So how should this child, get here? It doesn't matter how you get here, as long as it's legal and doesn't involve small boats. Can you give me an example? Well, it would be okay if you just sort of appeared here. So, teleported? Yes, exactly. If you could teleport here, that would be fine. But teleportation doesn't actually exist. So doesn't that make it a bit like your safe and legal routes? They exist in theory, but not in practice. And in theory, that's something I should care about. Whilst I've got you, can you please confirm when you were given legal advice that your treatment of migrants in detainment centres was against the law? Look, we take legal advice very seriously. Every time I've received legal advice, I've looked at it, read it, listened to it, nibbled it, smelled it, rubbed it against my skin, considered it deeply before completely ignoring it. Thank you, Minister. Next up, as the Metropolitan Police announces that they'll be texting 70,000 victims of a banking scam, we ask, on average, how many text messages would you have to receive from the Metropolitan Police before you'd get a racist joke or a sexist meme?
Wonderful, wonderful, Matt. So, guys, have a great weekend. I'll see you on Sunday roast, or I'll see you next Tuesday at the same time, same bad channel. Have a great weekend. Take care. Good night.